All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about a massive problem in the tech world. How do you handle enormous amounts of data without it all just turning into a giant, chaotic mess? Today, we're going to look at how to tame what's known as the data swamp, using a really cool technology called Apache Iceberg.
To really get this, I want you to picture something. Imagine you're running a library. But this isn't just any library. It has 1 billion books. And every single second, new books are arriving, people are editing pages in the books that are already there, and some are even being thrown out. Now, here's the kicker. You have to manage all of this with zero card catalog. No system. How would you find anything? How would you even know what you have? Seriously, this is the exact problem that modern big data systems are up against.
So, that nightmare library we just imagined? Yeah, that has a name. In the data world, engineers call it a data swamp. It starts as a data lake, which is just a huge storage place for raw data, but over time it gets so disorganized and messy that trying to get any reliable information out of it is basically impossible. It's a huge, huge headache.
Okay, so let's break this down. What's the core issue here? How does a nice, clean data lake turn into a nasty swamp? Well, it pretty much all comes down to being a lake without any rules.
See, what we really want is something called a transactional data lake. The best way to think about it is to think about your bank account. You expect every deposit, every withdrawal, every single transaction to be perfectly reliable and consistent, right? You need to be able to trust it completely. Well, in the data world, those same guarantees are called asset properties. It's just a way of making sure that when you ask your data a question, you get a straight, accurate answer every single time.
And this slide really paints the before and after picture. Before tools like Iceberg came along, changing even one tiny piece of data was a total nightmare. You'd often have to rewrite an entire massive table, which was not only slow and expensive, but also super risky. One little mistake could corrupt everything. But now, with Iceberg, you can make those same changes with simple, familiar SQL commands. It's fast, it's safe, and it's a complete game changer.
Which, of course, brings us to the hero of our story today. The solution to this whole data swamp mess is Apache Iceberg. And if we go back to our library analogy, Iceberg is basically the super smart, high-tech digital catalog that's going to fix everything.
So, what is it exactly? Well, Apache Iceberg is an open-source table format. It's a specification, a set of rules for organizing huge tables. Now, here's the key part. Iceberg doesn't actually store your data itself. Instead, it sits right on top of your existing data lake and acts as that intelligent, reliable catalog. It brings the order and simplicity of a traditional database to the wild world of big data, and finally puts an end to the chaos.
So, how does this magic actually work? Well, Iceberg has a few key features that make it so revolutionary. I like to think of them as its core superpowers. First up is superpower number 1, flawless schema evolution. Now, schema might sound like a technical, scary word, but all it really means is the blueprint for your data table. You know, what are the columns, what are they called, and what kind of data goes in them.
And this is the part that is just incredible. With Iceberg, making changes to that schema, that blueprint, never requires you to rewrite the whole table. This is huge. Think about our library again. This is like being able to add a whole new section or rename an aisle without ever having to move a single book. It just works. For a business, this means they can adapt and change how they look at their data almost instantly.
And just look at how simple it is. If you know even a little bit of SQL, these commands probably look pretty familiar. You can change a column's type, move it around, or just rename it with one line of code. Iceberg handles all the complicated, messy stuff in the background, which frees up data engineers to actually build cool new things instead of just doing endless maintenance.
Okay, on to superpower number 2, and this one is a personal favorite of mine, time travel and rollback. And yes, it is every bit as cool as it sounds.
In the data world, time travel is the power to query your table and see exactly what it looked like at any specific moment in the past. Every single change that's made creates a new version, or a snapshot of the table. So you have this perfect, unchangeable history. This is absolutely critical if you need to run a report again and get the exact same result, or if you want to analyze how your data is changing over time.
So let's make this real. Let's say we have a table of taxi trips in New York City. Right now, as we're looking at it, there are just over 2.85 million trips recorded in it.
But what if we need to know how many trips there were last week before the latest data was loaded in? In the old days, this could be a real problem. With Iceberg, you just run a simple time travel query asking for the table as it was last week, and boom, there it is, just under 2.8 million trips. The old version of the data is still there, perfectly preserved and accessible.
And that ability leads directly to another lifesaver. What happens if something goes horribly wrong? Say a bad update accidentally deletes a million rows. Total disaster, right? Well, not with Iceberg. You can instantly roll the entire table back to the previous correct version. It is literally the ultimate undo button for big data. It's what saves you from bad data getting into your critical reports or messing up your machine learning models.
And that brings us to our final superpower, surgical updates and deletes. This one tackles another one of those huge pain points from the old data lake world, changing just a few individual records.
See, it used to be that if you wanted to delete a single row from a file that had, say, a billion rows, you'd have to rewrite the entire billion-row file. It was crazy inefficient. But Iceberg is way smarter. It essentially just marks that row for deletion without rewriting anything, which makes it incredibly fast. You can use a simple SQL command to target exactly what you want to change, and Iceberg handles all the hard work. This is absolutely essential for things like data privacy laws, like GDPR, where you might be required to delete a specific person's data on request.
So, okay, these superpowers are clearly awesome. But you might be wondering, is this just a cool science project, or are people actually using this out in the real world? Let's talk about the payoff. And more importantly, why this should matter to you and your career.
Well, the short answer is pretty much everybody who's anybody in the data space. All the giants. I'm talking Amazon, Google, Snowflake, Databricks. They've all built native support for Iceberg directly into their major platforms. This is not some niche experimental tool. It's quickly become a foundational piece of the modern data industry.
And what does that mean for you? It means jobs. Plain and simple. If you're thinking about a career as a data engineer, a data analyst, a data scientist, or really anyone who works with data at scale, understanding modern table formats like Iceberg is becoming an absolutely critical skill to have on your resume.
So, let's zoom out for a second and wrap this all up. What's the big picture here, and what does this mean for the future of data?
If you remember just one thing from our time today, let it be this. Apache Iceberg brings the reliability and the simplicity that we've always had in traditional databases to the massive, messy world of big data. It's making these huge data sets trustworthy, accessible, and frankly, a lot less scary for more people than ever before.
And so I want to leave you with one final question to chew on. Technologies like Iceberg are creating open standards, a common language for data. So if the data format itself is no longer locking you into one specific company or tool, what's the next big barrier to fall in the world of big data? What becomes possible when our data can finally move and be processed and understood more freely than ever before?